Welcome back in, everybody. It's the Walkthrough Game Show on Sports Illustrated's Mountaineer Maven. I'm Schuyler Callihan, and joining with me here is, as always, is former West Virginia running back Eugene Napoleon. Gene, we've got a lot to talk about and don't have a whole lot of time to do it. But anyways, let's go and get right to it. West Virginia falling on the road to number 4 Oklahoma, 16-13. We talked about it before we came on. This was a game that I don't think anybody really anticipated the Mountaineers winning, but boy, did they look good defensively. Offensively, not so much.
You stand to be corrected.
Except for Eugene. He had
okay. I was going to say, yes, I definitely predicted WVU to win, and I expected us to win, and we played well enough to win. But again, unfortunately, when you don't put up points in the second half of a football game in this conference or in any conference for that matter, it's going to be really difficult to win the game. We look good. We look good at times. And unfortunately, we made some really crucial mistakes that I think cost us the game. We pretty much gave it to them. We definitely should have left Norman with a victory.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, the defense played extremely well. They flew all over the field. I mean, at certain points of the game, the Oklahoma student section was chanting for their backup quarterback to come into the game. They're saying, Caleb. And I'm not a fan of that stuff, but, I mean, I get the frustration. West Virginia is certainly going through their own quarterback situation right now between Jarrett Dagey and Garrett Green. And I don't know. That second half has really been problematic for West Virginia. And you look in their two losses, they've lost by a combined 9 points. And in those two losses, Gene, the offense has combined for 6 total points. So when you've lost 2 games by 9, and in the second halves of those games, you've only scored 6 total points, I mean, I don't know what else is more clear. The defense is doing their job. They're not making adjustments on the offensive side of the ball coming out of the half. What do you think can change, if anything can change, to get West Virginia back on track to where this isn't going to be a season-long problem?
Well, I think this, okay. You're right. Defense is doing their job, apparently, because they're keeping you close and in games that you could win and should win. Howsoever, I'm not sure if it's a situation where the adjustments are not being made, or the adjustments that are being made, we're not fully executing.
Yeah.
Because that can be a twofold problem. Now, the other key is, I know Coach is overseeing. He's calling the plays as the OC as well. That's difficult to do. It's difficult to do because you literally have to micromanage the entire game. So to also call the plays on offense, I'm hoping and praying that part gets pretty much rectified before the season's over. Maybe someone else can call the plays and really let him focus on the entire game at that particular point versus you can't micromanage that. You have to have, in my opinion, a full-time OC. And if they do that, I think we will probably be more productive on offense if we have a full-time OC. That's going to be, for me, starters. That would be what I would probably suggest. And then let's see what's going on with the play calls, because it seems like the sheet gets a little bit, the playbook seems to shrink a little bit in the second half. And that's another issue that I'm looking at as well.
100%. I mean, I talked with Chris, my co-publisher here at WVU, about it, and I don't know why Neil hasn't necessarily gone to a full-time coordinator. I mean, he's got Chad Scott, he's got Jared Parker. Are those two guys, either one of those two guys, going to be the answer? I don't know. But if neither of those guys are at the point yet where they're able to take over the offensive play calling, I agree with you. Neil Brown has to go out and get somebody, because Dana made the same exact mistake when he first came here. He thought that he could call the plays because he's that offensive guru. Neil Brown's not a bad offensive mind either. I mean, when you look back at his record in his history, he was really good at Texas Tech. He was good at Troy. He knows what he's doing offensively, but it's so much responsibility that he has to be able to kind of oversee everything. And I think bringing an offensive coordinator may be able to help make some of those small detail changes at halftime, and to where they can not only script better, but they can go and continue to make those game plan changes throughout the game. And in that second half, let's go ahead and talk about this. West Virginia is in a position with about, say, 6-7 minutes to go in the game. They're moving the ball down the field. Then it comes to a snap infraction. Now it's 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8. Then you have the miss snap to where Daggy wasn't ready for the snap. That's now it's 3rd and 33. You went from possibly getting a touchdown with maybe 2 or 3 minutes on the clock to maybe at least a field goal with 3 minutes on the clock to now you're punting the ball back and you have no chance of getting the ball back. That is a big miscue. And
that was the game.
And that was the game. And you go back even earlier in the game. West Virginia has the ball on the doorstep, 2nd and goal from the 1 yard line. What happens? False start. Now you change your game plan right there. You're not going to just run the ball with Lottie Brown on 2 straight plays. Now you go back in the gun. You got to throw the ball, have protection. Jarrett Daggy throws a little bit of a high ball to Bryce Ford right in the back of the end zone. It may have been high, but he should have caught it. But I go back to that false start. You don't have that bad throw. You don't have to make that throw. If there's no false start, it's 2nd and goal from the 1. Why do we feel the need to get a head start? If you can't beat your man on 2nd and goal from the 1 and you're worried about him getting around you or through you, what's that tell you?
But see, these are the things that I'm talking about when it comes down to a well-disciplined football team. Those kind of mistakes, you're 100% correct. You cannot make those kind of crucial mistakes at any point in the game, but especially in those points, in that particular point in a football game, right? So it comes back to you really have to break everything back down and figure out where are we most vulnerable. And once you figure that out, now we need to work in those areas. And those are crucial mistakes to have, because those mistakes, when you look at it, it costs you a football game. It doesn't matter if it's 3 to 4 mistakes per game. If you're losing those games, that those mistakes are constantly happening, now you have to look at the entire preparation from each coach, each position coach, each coordinator, the head coach, and figure out why are we making these miscues and having these miscues in these crucial points and parts of the football game, because it tends to consistently happen week in and week out. We have to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand where the lack of creativity is in the offense, because it seems like the offense is there at the beginning of the game and you feel like, okay, maybe this is the week where they finally get things going. I mean, look at the hot start that they got off with Virginia Tech. They're up 27-7. Neal decides to take the air out of the offense and it just went boom downhill from there. I mean, I feel like he's got to gain some confidence. I know that a lot of that has to do with your quarterback play and everything else, but the 2 quarterback system, I think, is not a bad idea for West Virginia. I don't think it's a good plan to always have a 2 quarterback system, but I think with this year's team and in this situation, I mean, let's be honest, you don't have 2, 4, or 5-star quarterbacks sitting on your bench that are ready to go. I mean, these guys are a true freshman in Goose Crowder, a redshirt freshman in Garrett Green. They are young guys that have a lot to learn. That's not to say that Garrett Green can't play in the game, but to hand him the entire keys to the offense, I don't know if I would be ready to do that or Neal Brown. So I think when you have a struggling quarterback like Jarrett Daggy, I think the best way to do this is to use that 2 quarterback system, and it has proven to work in years past with other teams. I don't know if at some point Green's going to take over the offense this season, but I think he's starting to get a good feel for this 2 quarterback system. What do you think?
Listen, that works if your offense is structured and set up for the success of the second guy, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. Your first quarterback, you pretty much know what you're going to get out of your start, right? Deggy, to me, he's managing the offense to the best of his ability. Then all of a sudden you bring Green in, and then you're expecting something drastically different because of his skill set. So if that's what you're expecting, that offense has to be fine-tuned for that. And then when you put him in, if you have gaps in execution because it seems like the offensive line is not ready, he may not be ready, and you're running specific plays or packages just for Green, sooner or later, any D coordinator in the country that's worth their salt is going to figure out what those packages look like, right? Down the distance, what are you running, on a percentage base when he comes in the game? high percentage you're going to do this, low percentage you might do this. It can't be that. In other words, if you're going to bring him in with the same expectations as you do with Deggy. Bring him in with an offense where you know he's going to throw the ball too, not just run it. So that means the preparation part of it, that's on your staff and on your coach. That's not, Green already knows what his expectations. It's limited right now because he gets in the game, the playbook is about this big. And it should be about this big. Because as the season goes on, that playbook should expand. You understand what I'm saying? It can't stay this big for 12 games. I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me, well, he's a redshirt freshman, he's still working on. Listen. You got to get out of that mindset because he's there for a reason. Then that means he needs to be developed. Point blank, period. I'm not an excuse guy. Coach Nealon, back in my era, everybody who was expected to step on that field was expected to play at a very high level. Yeah. There wasn't too much of a fall off from 1 to 2.
And sometimes a guy, that's all he needs is that game action. I mean, some guys are just better in the games than they are in practice. So, I mean, you don't really know until you put him in those situations. And like I've said before, a guy may be the best practice player you ever seen. And then when he gets into a game, it's like a deer in the headlights. Or it could be the other way around. The guy is terrible at practice, doesn't look like he's progressing, and he gets into the game and he's just a baller. I mean, he's just a gamer. It's just how some guys are wired. But nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and move on quickly to this Texas Tech game, and then we're going to get into our picks. Texas Tech 2-0 under Matt Wells against Neil Brown. So this is a very intriguing game. I know it's not, Oklahoma, it's not Texas, but this is a team that West Virginia wants to beat, not only to get to 3-2 and 1-1 in conference play, but because they've had their number over the last 2 years. Right. Henry Colombi is going to be starting at quarterback for the Red Raiders. He started against West Virginia last year and he was their backup last year. He got thrown into action. Same thing this year. Their starting quarterback, Tyler Shuck, gets hurt. He comes in. And I don't know if this is really a good situation for West Virginia. I think it would be better off if Tyler Shuck was in the game because Colombi really gave West Virginia fits last year, extending plays with his feet, making plays with his feet. And they may have had one of their worst defensive games a year ago against Texas Tech. What does this defense have to do to get off the field? And then on the other hand, Texas Tech gave up 70 points last week to Texas, 70.
Right.
West Virginia, if their offense is going to come together, it's got to be this week, right?
No doubt about it. And I also think the defense, take a page out of what they did last week, and I know most people say, we'll throw that in the garbage, they lost, whatever. Take a page out of that momentum that they had coming off the field in Norman. They need to have that same intensity, bring that same attitude, foaming at the mouth attitude for Texas Tech, number one, defensively. Offensively, this would be a game, if I'm Neil Brown and that staff, I would go into the offensive meeting room to say, that's it. We're taking the gloves off. We're taking everything off. We're taking the training wheels off. Let's go. I'm going to challenge you to score 40 some odd points. And we're not going to take the air off the ball. We're not going to take, the ball away from our backs. We are looking to score 40 some odd plus points. Let's go. That's this week. You have to go into it thinking that way. I want to score a lot of points in offense, and I want my defense to be lathered up and ready to go. And I want to execute in every phase of the game. That's this week. If I'm Neil Brown and that staff, that's the kind of confidence I'm going in with, and I'm not settling for anything less.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of people are already kind of writing the year off being 2-2, but I mean, there's still a lot to play for. I mean, you think Absolutely. About one of those losses in non-conference play. So if you run the table, which is I'm not saying it's likely, but every game on West Virginia's schedule right now is a winnable game. There's not one team out there the rest of the way that is a sure guaranteed loss. They can win if they prove it. And if you finish the year 7-1 in conference play, you're playing for the Big 12 championship. You're going to play for an opportunity to go to a New Year's Six game. This season is by far nowhere close to being over with.
You said it. I agree with you 110%. Let me tell you something. If they play the way they played in Norman last week and the first half of the Virginia Tech game They will run the table. They will run the table. But that's what I'm saying. It has to be that consistency, though. You don't win games. You don't win games just because you got 5-star kids on your freaking roster. You win games because you are consistent, and in crucial times, players step up to make big plays. That's how you win football games. I don't care if you got there are teams that there were years, if you look past back some years, where Florida State had the #1 recruiting class in the country 2 or 3 years in a row. This is some years ago. How many national championships did they win during that time span?
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter. And they have more 5-star kids than anybody in the country. It doesn't matter. That's what I'm trying to say. Consistency, execution, in crucial times in the game, moving the chains, making the plays you need to make to win. That's what wins you games.
Exactly. And once you get on the field in college, there's no star ratings anymore. That's all out the window. That's all.
Throw it out the window.
So let's go ahead and get to our picks. There's a lot of good games this week, Gene, and I know I'm going to be glued to the TV. So let's go ahead and start with a top 10 SEC matchup. Number 8, Arkansas, surprising a lot of people right now. At number 2, Georgia, at noon on ESPN. Where are you going?
Bulldogs, baby.
Bulldog. You know what? I think Arkansas is a very underrated team, even being at number 8. I think they keep it close, but Georgia gets the win.
Yep.
Let's go to number 14, Michigan at Wisconsin, coming off that poor second half against Notre Dame, noon on Fox. I'm going to say Michigan, but Wisconsin's going to come out and play a lot better than people think. Where are you going?
Listen, I agree, but I also agree with you. I think Michigan pulls it out, but I think it's going to be closer than what people think.
Number 7, Cincinnati. They get their shot this week for a state win to make their case for the college football playoff. At number 9, Notre Dame, 2:30 NBC. Does Cincy get the upset?
Let me tell you something. You know I can't stand Notre Dame. So I'm hoping Cincy gets the upset. I'm going with Cincinnati.
You're going with Cincinnati. You know what? I'm going to go with Cincinnati too. I think they're a much better defense than people give them credit for. They got a really good quarterback in Desmond Ridder. Luke Fickell's a really good coach. And if there's a year where a group of 5 teams is going to make the playoff, this could be the year to do it. With Cincinnati, right. They've got the schedule. They have the opportunities. I'm going to go Cincinnati too. And let's go to one more Big 12 game, and then we'll get to West Virginia. Number 21, Baylor. They beat Iowa State last week. They go to Oklahoma State this week. ESPN 2 at 7 o'clock. Who you got?
I got Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State. Yeah, I'm going to go Baylor in this one. I'm not sold on Oklahoma State. I don't think either of these teams are actually that good. I think they're a little bit better than the record would indicate.
I agree, but for some reason, I don't know. The Cowboys always seem to surprise you, and the games that you don't think they should win, they win. The games they should lose, the games that you don't really, you count them out, they tend to play well enough and the ball bounces their way 1 or 2 times and they wind up winning. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think Oklahoma State, I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
All right, we'll go ahead and wrap the show up with our game pick of West Virginia homecoming game against Texas Tech, 3:30 on ESPN 2, I believe it is. Don't have it pulled up here right with me, but West Virginia, again, 0-1 in conference play. They have a chance to get back to 500 this week. Their first win over Texas Tech under Neil Brown. Can they do it?
Yes.
I should have known the answer. We all know that.
Listen, hold on. Emphatic. Yes.
Yes. Are you going? So that's a big score, right? Big.
Listen, yes. We better come out and rock out this week, man. Yes. Take the gloves off.
Gene says it's going to be too big of a score. He doesn't even want to give a prediction.
I'll give you a prediction. You want the prediction?
Yeah, let's go and give a prediction.
I'm going to say 42-28, West Virginia.
Okay, that's respected. All right, I'm going to go West Virginia. They come back, they get the win, and I'm going to say 33-23. I don't think Texas Tech I think they start off hot. And this defense where they've kind of had some first halves that they're trying to figure some stuff out, they're going to clean things up in that second half, shut that offense down. West Virginia wins by 10, 33-23, gets back to 500 in conference play. You take it?
That's respectable. Let me leave off with this. Neil Brown, I respect him. I respect the staff. I think he is the right guy for the job. Let's not get crazy. Let's not
Yeah,
get crazy. He is the right man for the job. It's a slow burn, but I do trust where he's taking the program.
that's why you got to trust the climb, right? You got to trust the climb, and those climbs, they sometimes are a little bumpy.
A little bit. Trust
Well,
the climb. Trust the climb.
so trust the climb. We'll see what the Mountaineers do on Saturday at home in Morgantown at Milan Puskar Stadium, 3:30 against Texas Tech. That's going to do it for here for us here on the Walkthrough Game Day Show presented by SI Mountaineer Maven. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Join with me here is Eugene Napoleon. We'll be back next week to recap Texas Tech and preview West Virginia's next game against Baylor.